Out of the Shadows, Part 3. The Aftermath. The night of Sarah's 18th birthday party had left the Dupree's family in tatters. But I couldn't rest just yet. There was still a part of me that knew Sarah wasn't going to let it all go quietly. The look in her eyes as she was dragged off the dance floor, wild and furious, told me that this wasn't over. The next few weeks were peaceful. Almost too peaceful. I spent my time basking in my new life, attending charity events and galas with my biological parents, Sophia and David. They had welcomed me into their world with open arms. And I was thriving in ways I never could have imagined when I was still living under the Dupree's roof. But I knew Sarah. I knew her pride. Her ego had been shattered. And for someone like her, that was a wound that festered. Sarah strikes back. I wasn't wrong. It started with small things. Gossip whispered behind my back at school. Nasty rumors spread by Sarah's remaining clique. Keisha only got rich because she was adopted by the Daniels, they'd say. She's not even a real part of the family. Of course I wasn't fazed. At this point I was untouchable. My biological parents had built a reputation for our family that made me nearly immune to the schoolyard games Sarah was playing. But then things started to escalate. One day after school, I found my locker vandalized. Graffiti sprayed across it, reading, "Fraud" in big red letters. Sarah's handiwork, no doubt. I caught her smirking from across the hallway, her arms crossed as her cronies giggled beside her. I could have fought back. I could have confronted her right then and there, made a scene. But I had learned the value of patience. No, Sarah wasn't going to get the satisfaction of watching me lose control. Instead, I calmly called my mother, Sophia, and told her what had happened. "We'll handle this," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Sarah is making a mistake if she thinks she can win this war." The corporate revenge. While Sarah was busy acting out her high school vendetta, my father, David, had been working on a more significant plan. You see, the Dupree's family's business had already been struggling ever since my parents had quietly pulled strings behind the scenes. But now it was time to deliver the final blow. One morning, as I was eating breakfast with Sophia and David, my father looked up from his phone and smiled. "It's done," he said, sliding his phone across the table to me. I glanced at the screen and saw the news. The Dupree's family business had officially gone bankrupt. They had lost their biggest investors. And the company was being liquidated. I couldn't believe it. The family that once flaunted their wealth in front of me, who used their fortune to belittle me, was now penniless. "They'll have to sell the house," David said, taking a sip of his coffee, "and probably move somewhere more affordable." It was poetic justice. While Sarah was busy tormenting me at school, her family's entire world was collapsing. But I wasn't done yet. The confrontation. The next time I saw Sarah was at school, and I could see the stress written all over her face. She was trying to keep it together, but the cracks were showing. Her designer clothes were still there, but the confidence she once wore like armor had disappeared. I waited for the perfect moment. After school, when the hallways were nearly empty, I walked up to her locker. She was standing there, alone for once, looking at her phone with a frown. "Having a bad day, Sarah?" I asked, leaning casually against the locker next to hers. She glared at me, her eyes narrowing. "What do you want, Keisha?" "Oh, nothing," I said, shrugging. "Just wanted to see how you're holding up. I heard about your family's financial troubles. Must be tough." Her face flushed with anger, and for a moment, I thought she might actually hit me. But instead she just clenched her fists, her knuckles white. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You think you've won, but you have no idea what's coming." I laughed, shaking my head. "Sarah, your family is broke. You're losing everything. And you think you still have some kind of power over me? Please." She didn't say anything, just glared at me with all the hatred she could muster. I knew this wasn't over for her, but for now, I had the upper hand. And I was going to enjoy every second of it. The final strike. But I knew Sarah wouldn't give up that easily. She was still dangerous, even without her family's wealth behind her. So, I decided it was time to take things to the next level. With my parents' help, I started digging into the Dupree's family's personal life. It didn't take long to find out that they had some skeletons in their closet. Financial mismanagement, shady business deals, and even some questionable real estate transactions. My father's legal team made sure the right people knew about these indiscretions. And soon enough, the Dupree's name was being dragged through the mud in the media. The headlines were brutal. Dupree's family scandal, bankruptcy and fraud claims surface. It was everywhere. The family couldn't escape it, and neither could Sarah. At school, everyone was talking about it. The same people who once followed Sarah around like loyal puppies were now avoiding her like the plague. Sarah's downfall was complete. Her family was disgraced, her friends had abandoned her, and her reputation was in ruins. And I was still standing stronger than ever. The aftermath. The Dupree's family had to sell their mansion, downsizing to a modest house in the suburbs. Sarah, the once untouchable queen bee, was now a nobody. She tried to keep up appearances for a while, but eventually, she stopped coming to school altogether. I heard through the grapevine that her parents had sent her away to some boarding school out of town, probably hoping she could start fresh somewhere new. As for me, life was sweet. My parents had helped me take down the family that had mistreated me, and now, I had everything I could have ever wanted. But I didn't need to rub it in anymore. I had won. Sarah had been destroyed, and the Dupree's family would never recover. Please share and subscribe.